One day in 1876, Brigham Young explained to Carl G. Mazur that he had a mission for Carl to fulfill. He said he wanted to send him to Provo to start an academy there that would teach principles of the gospel. Carl asked him, "What should I be guided by?" And Brigham said, "Well, you should be guided by the principle that nothing should be taught at that school, the alphabet or mathematics, without the Spirit of the Lord." And he took that to heart. Abraham Smoot was the president of the stake and thus had responsibility for the academy. He and his board of directors met with Carl G. Mazur and offered him a salary to be paid from such as was collected or available. And that included pears and squash and apples and things like that. There was very little in the way of monetary reward. So they were sacrificing hugely to come and be part of this great institution.
My parents, Verlin and Shirley Anderson, had desired their children to have a private education where they could speak freely of our Heavenly Father and of the gospel and the scriptures in the classroom. So many of my siblings, all of them, at one time or another, were enrolled at BY Academy, Brigham Young Training School. And we enjoyed that school and that experience very much. They were excellent teachers.
And we had a good experience there. We loved our teachers, and my father wanted me there because he said these teachers will all be teaching you the gospel as part of their classes.
We felt blessed to have that opportunity. But in 1968, they announced that they would be closing down the training school and wanted to use that money in other places where they felt children didn't have opportunities for education that we had here. At that time, my father, Verlin Anderson, decided that he, with other professors at BYU and other people who were interested in having their children receive private education, got together and discussed establishing a private school. And that is how American Heritage School came about.
They didn't have any place to go initially. They started out, doing it in people's homes, but then they wanted to expand it. And they were all people they were like pioneers.
We began looking for a place that maybe we could start a private school. And my husband went up to Salt Lake and talked to Elder Benson if he knew any buildings that would be available. And he said, "Well, the first building that comes available, we will let you know about it." Well, we were hoping there'd be one in Provo, but that didn't happen. But there was one in Pleasant Grove that became available, and this was in 1969. The building still had old songbooks in it and old papers, and was pretty well used, but we went out and everyone worked to clean it out, and we just felt like that was sent from heaven.
I would grow up on the stories of how they got the school, the miracle of getting the school, the miracle of getting those initial books, and of course felt what an honor to be part of a vision for creating a place where his children and grandchildren and many others could be in a place where they would feel loved, would deepen their love for the Lord, and could grow and be nurtured in light and truth.
Sacrifice consecrates our efforts. One of my very favorite stories is of a wonderful widow named Alice Green, who in the very early days of the school attended one of our patriotic programs. After the program, she went up to Brother Verlin Anderson and said to him, "What can I do to help you?" He very good-naturedly answered, "You could pay off our mortgage." Within a couple of weeks, Mrs. Green sent a check to cover the rest of the mortgage on the school, and American Heritage has been free of debt ever since.
I became involved with American Heritage School when our two youngest children were enrolled. They were in 4th or 5th grade. And this was my first up-close experience at American Heritage School. It was such a marvelous thing that even after my children have graduated, I've wanted to continue to bless the lives of people just as my children have been blessed. I feel I owe it to the next generation to be involved. And just as the Andersons have seen their children and then their grandchildren be involved, I hope that my grandchildren can return to American Heritage and receive that kind of education.
So many people I have spoken with in this building who are interested in what we do here. comment on what a beautiful building this is. And my response is always, yes, this is a beautiful building, but the most beautiful thing is what occurs here. The principles that we plant deeply in the hearts of the children. We define principle as a basic truth, and that is what we teach them each and every day. All of our curriculum, all curricular subjects are based on the gospel of Jesus Christ and His truths.
There's a greater payoff at American Heritage School for teachers and administrators, and that is the spirit, the fulfillment from learning the Christian curriculum. It's such a fulfilling experience that is actually hard to describe, but it's not about money.
The more I listened to the purposes, the mission statement of the school, the more I realized that this was a carryover from Carl G. Mazur's principles that he inculcated in the academy back in 1876. Think of that, how long that's been, and to see that survive in such force and in such beautiful surroundings was really impressive to me.
Our largest desire for our graduates from our school is that they will be useful in the hands of God in building His kingdom. I don't think there's anything greater that we can be than be useful to our Father in heaven.